Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and welcome back to MMA. Had about, seems like months off, but it's been about 3 weeks, and we're going to get back into it with a pretty rotten card, both from a talent perspective and from a fight number perspective, because I think they had 13 fights scheduled, and 3 of them have been canceled. We're down to 10, and it's usually not a good GPP type slate when you have 10 fights. It's just hard to get different in that way. The other thing about this particular card is that, as we'll get to it, there are several just kind of easy spots to get to, which probably everybody's going to get to, which is making it even more chalky. However, it does rate to be a really good slate from the perspective of being instructive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the card and go through, my process to show you, what type of fights and what type of fighters and what type of plays make for good, DFS plays. Now, again, these are not going to be particularly earth-shattering. You're not going to get real low ownership on much of this, but it will at least show you how to go through the process of making good plays. Now, yes, you could try to take some low-owned shots against some of these plays that I'm going to be bringing up. But quite honestly, it is a really straightforward type of card, at least as far as process goes. And I think that people that max enter this are basically throwing money away. I really feel as though there are some slates that are conducive to mass multi-entering, and with a lot of upside, and a lot of finishes, and a lot of leveraging and stuff like that. And there are others that, are more GPP slates that, are just demanding that you play like, between 5 and 10 lineups and just going with it. Because you are likely, the optimal is likely to be duped. And if the optimal is likely to be duped and you have it, you don't want to lose 97 lineups to get there. So that's my thoughts. Those are my initial thoughts on this slate. But again, let's talk process here. What types of fighters are we looking for? Well, you're looking for a couple of things. Now, you're looking for either a fighter with incredible win odds relative to his salary. And that usually doesn't happen unless there is a replacement fighter. And you have 2 examples of that in this card, which we'll get to. Second type of fighter you're looking for is someone that can finish inside the distance, because DraftKings scoring rewards you for knockouts and for submissions and early finishes. The other type of fighter that you're looking for, if you can't get that, is a fighter with grappling upside, because the grapplers and wrestlers, just because of the nature of the scoring, do better than the slow, methodical, strikers. And then if you can't get any of that, just a fight that you can rack up points based on just pure significant strikes. In other words, if you have a real high volume, high pace type matchup. So those are the things that we look for. And let's start, as usual, unfortunately, with the main event. I mean, the main event is going to be a difficult one to fade, even though, neither of these guys really rate to finish early. And they're both strikers. The fact is that this slate is just so bereft of any real huge ceiling scores that the ability to get 5 rounds is probably just enough to make whoever wins this fight optimal, or at least in the optimal lineup. Maybe it's not the best score overall, but to be in the optimal lineup. And the other thing about this main event is that these guys are priced as if Chikaze would be like a 3-to-1 or plus favorite, but in reality, he's only about 2.2-to-1. So you're getting some natural decent win odds, win equity on Kelleher, and just Chikaze, because of his upside, and 5 rounds to get it, he's going to be a good play too. So I do think you do have to get that main event. But let's look at, again, from process, what other fights bring up the type of fighters that I alluded to earlier. So fortunately for us, as far as instruction goes, but unfortunately for the rest of the field that has to eat this chalk, there are 2 fights that exhibit examples of fighters who got replacement fighters, but their salaries can't change because that's the way it goes. And first of them is going to be TJ Brown. TJ Brown was scheduled to fight someone who was going to be a big favorite over him, so he was priced at 7,100. That person dropped out, so now they gave him a late replacement in Charles Rosa, and TJ Brown is a 2.8 to 1 or 2.5 to 1 favorite over him, and yet is still priced at 7,100. So he is essentially a mathematical lock. Now that doesn't mean that he's going to win necessarily, but he is certainly priced as a 2 to 1 underdog or 2.5 to 1 underdog, and he's actually a 2.5 to 1 favorite. From a win equity perspective, he's just kind of a lock. And so that's, again, Exhibit A. Exhibit B of that group is going to be Brian Kelleher. Same thing. He was in a fight where he was supposed to be a small to medium-sized underdog. That fighter dropped out, was replaced last minute by Kevin Kroom, and he is now being priced at the same because you can't change the prices. So he is now priced as if you were about a $1.70 underdog, where he's actually like a 2.5 to 1 favorite, making him a mathematical lock. So these two guys are the staples of all cash lineups, and in my opinion, are just probably guys you want to lock in GPPs too. If this were a bigger slate, like 12, 15 fights, and you had like 5 or 6 fights that had just all kinds of ceiling that you'd want to get to, I would say that you don't have to play these guys. But in a slate like this, with just very limited upside and not that many fights, to fade these two situations is really asking for trouble, as far as I'm concerned, at least. Now, again, can they lose? Of course. They're each going to lose about 1/3 of the time, right? But they're just being priced too juicy, and so they are theoretical locks, I guess is the best way to describe this. All right, those are exhibits. That's group 1. Group 2. What about finishers? Well, we go here to our handy dandy best fight odds, and we want to see which fights, if any, have a real strong inside the distance line, meaning which is, I would say better than, say, minus 150 to finish inside the distance. And you'll see there's very little. There's very little here. Look at this. This Brahimaj. No, that's like favored to go to a decision pretty much. Holmes Pickett is close, but it's probably a pick 'em. The 2 fights, I'll just cut right to it, that are relevant. Is the Brito one of them? No, not even. The 2 fights that are relevant are, one, this Borshchev fight. So Borshchev against Bush, this is minus 200 to finish. So this is one we want to target. And the second one is Bonsarin Royval. This one is minus 250 to finish. So that's the one we want to target. All the others just kind of stink. They're all about pick 'em. And so these are the 2 fights that you want to attack with this group. So you either want to play Borshchev or Bush or Bonsarin or Royval. Now we're going to get to this Bush thing in a second, but so that's the next thing. So let's just, just for kicks, and we're not going to fill out a whole lineup because DraftKings will get mad at me. But so you probably want to play, I don't even care which one. Put Royval in and put Borshchev in. This way you won't be able, maybe you will be able to get them anyway. Again, we already said you want to play Jakazi. I mean, you'll find that lineups are really easy to make today. So that's the second group. The third group is going to be the fighters with grappling upside. Okay. Basically, either if they lose, they might put up a good score because they'll get a couple of takedowns, or the concept of win condition. I'm not saying these guys are necessarily going to win, but if they do, it's probably because they were going to able to get their takedowns. And these are, well, one of them is actually in the women's fight. That's Jennifer Maia against Kathy Chookagian. Jennifer Maia, her one path to victory is probably going to be getting takedowns. So I think it's good to assume that of the 40% or 38% of the time she's going to win, she's going to probably score pretty well. So she fits within that category. Another one that fits in that category is Dakota Bush. Dakota Bush, pretty much a pure wrestler. And, if he wins, he's probably going to score well also. Now, you'll notice that that's the second time we mentioned this fight. And that's why this fight is really the key fight, because if Bush wins, it's going to be because the wrestling upside. And if Borshev wins, it's going to be because of the finish. So I think that either way, this fight you probably have to play. And the other one is Ramiz Brahimaj. He's about to pick him, and he is the one with the grappling upside over Court McGee, who wants to keep it on the feet. If in fact Brahimaj wins, it's going to be because he's going to get takedowns and score well. So he's another guy that's worth playing. So with respect to styles and all that kind of stuff, it's Maia or Bush or Brahimaj. And with respect to everything else, I mean, there's really no other fight that has a particularly great pace that you need to worry about or anything like that. So you really just go ahead and pick from the fighters that I kind of brought up, and you'll see how these lineups really do kind of make themselves. One guy, okay, I'll throw one guy just for the hell. So Jamie Pickett is fighting Joseph Holmes. And again, I don't have a lot of takes really on MMA, but here's one thing I will say about, gambling in general, is that people are very, they have short memories and they get biased and things like that. And you have to go back like 3 fights for this Jamie Pickett business. So Jamie Pickett was fighting, who was he fighting? Jordan Wright. And it was on a really, really big card. It was like the finals of like the qualifier. I mean, everybody was handicapping this card. And despite it being a pick'em, about 85% of the quote unquote sharp money was on Pickett. They thought that what's his name was just awful, Jordan Wright. And so everybody was all on Pickett, and Pickett just got crushed in 30 seconds. So then what happened is that now everybody's completely biased against Pickett. In his last fight, nobody played him, and he was fine. And I think that in this fight, I mean, you have Joseph Holmes, who's basically someone coming from the minor leagues as a minus 155 favorite. I actually do feel as though there's still that anti-Jamie Pickett bias from when he lost to Jordan Wright. So I feel as though there's a tiny bit of equity in Jamie Pickett. I mean, it's not really that great for DFS because of all the other things we discussed. He doesn't really fit within the other, groups of good plays. But I will say that, it's the next best. Fight doesn't go to decision line. Maybe Pickett is something that you want to try. And that's pretty much it. I would fade all the fights I didn't mention, and the fighters that I didn't mention. Like I wouldn't play any of Chukagian. I wouldn't play any of the Brito Algio fight. And I don't think I want to play these underdogs against. Well, maybe. Do you want to do this? You want to try to play Kroom against Kelleher? I mean, just because Kelleher is a good play doesn't mean that Kroom isn't also. Right? I mean, Kroom is priced. He's priced pretty efficiently, actually. Rosa priced a little bit. Rosa's price is a little bit better because they're both about the same, but TJ Brown's only like a 260, while Kelleher's like a 300. So maybe Rosa might be a better kind of leverage play if you want to play some of that. And the answer to the question a lot of people are asking is no. I don't think this is the card where you play two guys on the same in the same fight in GPPs. I just don't think there's enough upside in this whole card to get away with that. I think you just want to find 6 winners somehow and hope it's enough. That's why you start with these win odd plays. With Kelleher and TJ Brown, you get 2 wins. I mean, that really does go a long way. That's about it. Good luck, everybody. We will have better cards coming up with more options, but at least hopefully this is at least instructive on how to pick good DFS plays. Good luck this week, and let's get it.